I'm going to call this meeting to order. It says noon. We will note Mr. Williams will not be with us today, and otherwise all are present, so we are going to proceed. I understand we're a little technologically challenged today, but the staff has cobbled together a system for us to still use our board and projector, so glad to see that happen.
And I have control of the plug over here. Everyone should treat me accordingly.
The minutes were mailed. I'll ask for approval of the minutes. It was October 21st meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We're going to move right into official actions of the day, and Resolution 1234, adopting the community vision and objectives recommended by the Tree Trim Policy Review Panel in its report to the KUB Board of Commissioners and endorsing the strategy staff recommends for implementation. Mrs. Roach.
I'm doing this today, and I'm coming up here because, as you said, we have jerry-rigged the system. I want to assure you, there have been a lot of folks who, as we've tried to approach this recession with cost cutting, worried about, are you cutting costs in the right places? This is an example. We had the opportunity to replace the main projector, and we said, no, let's see if we can get another year or two out of it. Probably a bad example, but it is our opportunity to save a little money, but we have another projector, and I think it'll work just fine, I hope. It is my opportunity today to summarize where we are on the vegetation management project. And I really don't have a lot to say today. The purpose of today is just to tell you where we are since last meeting and to offer our recommendation for approval of the resolution. But I do want to take you back and remind you that it's been nearly a year ago since we started this process. We started with the City Council and KUB resolutions in December, and then we came back here to you in September with the tree panel's recommendations, in October with the KUB staff recommendations, and then we told you we would be back to you today with the final input from the public as well as the resolution. So that's where we are. Again, I will not summarize everything that's been covered up to this point. You all have the report of the initial report of the tree panel. You have KUB's initial response, and in your folders, as well as the table over here, you have a handout that has a summary as well as the verbatim comments that we received in public. So I won't repeat those, but I will remind you that at the last board meeting we told you that there were only 4 recommendations of those provided from the panel that we would not recommend, and those are listed at the top. We also indicated that we were going to have some one-time costs, but those were costs that we felt were appropriate for us to absorb in order for our program to improve. And then finally, we were going to seek additional input. The public input process, frankly, I think went well, but we would have wanted more input than what we got. As you can see the numbers there, the information that we got, frankly, was very consistent with the 7 or 8 months of the panel work. The panel did such a good and thorough job. There was really no ahas from the public input process for us. There were differing opinions, but frankly nothing that the panel itself hadn't engaged on and made recommendations on. Couple of just in my summary, a couple of the comments that we received were very consistent with panel recommendations. One that came out loud and clear is you should give the customer the option to have a tree removed rather than have it pruned if the pruning is going to be ugly. Well, as you know, we've always done that, and as you know, that was also the panel's recommendation. So that is pretty consistent with the feedback that we got even when we went out this past month. Some other things were not. One example is for those who don't understand lateral pruning method, there was one who said, I just hate the V-cut, stop that and do the rounded cut. And as you know, that is not consistent with lateral pruning. That is something that the panel considered a great deal and opted to support lateral pruning going forward. And we frankly defer to the recommendation of the panel on that. There were also some questions about our cost estimates for not, our recommendations for not removing the stumps and taking the wood away when trees are taken down. And we went back and did some additional checking on those cost estimates, and we believe those original cost estimates are accurate. Basically, our recommendation to you today is the same as it was in October, and that is that we continue to do those that we recommended in our implementation plan. A couple of things that we are going to have to clarify is that when we say we're not removing the wood, that's only on the trees that are taken all the way down. Obviously, when we do pruning, we will be cleaning up and removing all the brush from those. We are not at this time going to change our recommendation with regard to removing the stumps and removing the wood associated with tree removal. And again, that really relates largely to the cost of those as well as logistics. One recommendation came up late in the process, and it was about using chemicals to help the deterioration of the stumps, and we've looked into that, and at this time we're also not recommending that that become a standard practice. So finally, I want to say that we're here today to ask that you approve Resolution 1234. We think we have spent an adequate and appropriate amount of time studying this issue, and we're very, very anxious to get moving on with implementation so that we can implement the ideas of the panel and make our program better. Your approval of this resolution today would give us the green light to go ahead and move forward with those. Key points in the resolution is that we will have periodic reporting back on the activities of the changes in our tree program, and as well as a resolution going to the City Council. That's the end of my presentation. Any questions?
I have a question. When we communicate with the customer, if they're going to get the whole tree taken down, in the agreement, we do state that they are responsible for removing the wood.
That's correct.
So they know that up front before we actually start the process?
Yes. They actually have to sign, under our current practice as well as what was recommended, they sign a authorization for us to remove the tree. In that statement, in that form that they sign, it indicates that.
Are there any times when we would remove the wood if it's a dead tree or something? Is there any reason that we would or have removed?
I can't tell you that we never have done it. I can't tell you we never will do it, but it's not a part of our standard program. In most cases, to be honest, this is a guess on my part, but I think in most cases where we actually completely remove the tree, it is pretty dead. Is that Liz, or do we take down 50-50 or?
I don't have a statistic on that, whether they're dead or not. There are some cases where we do haul away all of the wood if physically there's nowhere to leave it, or if it would be left in close proximity to a road and possibly cause a traffic hazard. Those are some examples.
Go back to that one of the first screens I left by their notes, was the money one.
That one?
Yep.
So those are the things we're not recommending.
Thanks.
Any other questions?
Other
of me?
questions?
One other, on the public input, we had 3 meetings, is that right?
We had 4.
4 meetings, and we had 23 people total show up?
Yes, and some did cards, and some did emails, and some did phone lines. So
But actually,
23. The 23 were actually people other than us and people who were involved in the process, that sort of thing. These were 23 people from the community who came to comment. We didn't count ourselves.
Yeah, we need a motion.
I move that we approve Resolution 1234.
second.
I think there are some folks who may want to comment.
Yeah, I was going to ask, I know there's some tree panel members here or anybody else that would like to comment. Yes, sir. Bletner, please. We try to limit these to 5 minutes, sir.
I'm Jim Bletner. I was a member of the tree panel. It's good to see you all again, and hopefully this will be the last time for a while. Nothing personal, right, Tom?
That's right.
I wanted to address one of the items that was deleted, or that they did not recommend approving. I think that's the one that y'all have asked a lot of questions about. That's the removal of the trees and the stump grinding. I think when we started our panel that wouldn't have passed, but it did pass, and I think there's several reasons why it did. One of the things that we asked for was some of the legal issues to be discussed, and Professor Plank from the university, distinguished chair, and Mr. Cooley came and addressed us on those issues. And I think that was one of the things I wanted to clarify in my own mind, is what obligations that you had. I think they were Professor Plank, and I think Mr. Cooley would agree, and certainly he'll chime in if he doesn't, but I think one of the precedents that came forward was that you had an obligation to the easement allowed you to use and do what was necessary to maintain your lines, but at no additional cost or problem for the property owner. Otherwise, if you have to go across someone's yard to get to put a transformer up, you take care of that. That's an obligation that you do, because you may have damaged his yard if you do it. And that's the same principle, I think, that follows through with the stump grinding. Because if it's an additional expense of that property owner, then it is obviously injuring that property owner. What if you've got several trees that have to come down? Well, if you've had any trees that have been taken down, you know what the cost is. If you've had to have the stump ground, I can tell you it's a couple $100. If you got 4 or 5 of them, that's going to be $1,000 for that property owner. I don't think it's fair for that property owner to have to maintain that, take that cost on. And I also don't think that you may be on good legal grounds. What happens if you don't take the stumps down and you cut them within that 6 inches, and somebody comes in the dark and trips on that stump because they don't see the tree there because it's not there any longer? The property owner's going to get sued. And if it was me, I'd sue KUB too. Why not? Well, I think there's good reason for why not, and that was one of the things that we did, and that was we considered, and that was the cost. You know, nobody as a ratepayer wants to pay more, but if you grind the stumps and remove the other brush that you cut, you're talking about 30 cents a month for the property owner. What if you got to have a stump ground? What if you got to have 5, 10 stumps ground? And there's some cases that we've seen where that would be the case. That certainly is an expense to not all your ratepayers, but that ratepayer. So I've heard the argument, why not to do it? Well, you know, they shouldn't have planted those there in the first place. Well, and they bought the property on before they bought after the stumps were, the trees were there. There's another case that's a possibility too. You changed your policy on your trimming. If I planted this tree 20 years ago, you probably would have cut it up the side. There would have been no lateral cut. It wouldn't have been a problem. You'd have been happy with it. You wouldn't have complained about the tree. Now, because of the lateral method and some of the more aggressive trimming and appropriate trimming, you've changed what you do. So that argument doesn't hold water with me either. So anyway, I would ask that you please consider that. I think with the more aggressive policies that you've taken on trimming, I think that in my frame of mind, you should have less expense going forward. I think there's a possibility that your contractor's costs will come down. I'm hoping that they will. As a ratepayer, I assure you. And that's my concern. I hope that you will consider it. And I can tell you that that was the concern of most of the people on the panel that voted for it, because we felt that there was a legal obligation there. Thank you.